and 620.
All right, here to talk some NFL football, specifically the Arizona Cardinals. Howard Balzer, follow him on Twitter, X at HBalzer721. Howard, as you look at this week, wait a second. Let's get to the priorities here.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was asking Minucci about this earlier. Talk about this Hofstra Career Achievement Award that you got last week. Tell us about that.
Congratulations, Howard.
Yeah, it was a great honor to go back to the old stomping grounds, although I didn't get a chance to see much of it. But it was still a very nice event. The university started this Spotlight Award for Alumni Achievement last year. So this was the second year of it. There were 12 others with me. I wasn't the oldest. I was the second oldest, actually, of all the people honored. But it was kind of nice. It was kind of cool. And, the one thing I told people was interesting. I was sitting at the table with a guy who had graduated only 11 years ago, and he's all involved in all kinds of technological things and AI, stuff and this and that. And as we were talking, he says, "I just want you to know," he said, "reading the bios of all the people here, yours is the only one. Yours is the only job I'd be interested in switching with."
That's great.
which I think we've probably all gotten at different times over our careers from people saying, "Boy, I wish I had your job." So, but yeah, it was a great honor and nice to receive, and had a chance to go back to Long Island. And my sister lives there. She was able to share it with me with her husband. Saw a couple of my cousins who live there. So it was a nice few days spent on Long Island in New York.
You think about going back east like that with all the free agent signings. Is it still 24/7 Giants, Jets, football? I mean, the sports fan back there just seems to be so much more ingrained or in tune, or maybe just more into it.
Well, I think that, obviously it's the largest city in the country, and they have they have two teams in every sport, basically.
Right.
And so there's so much chatter and so much talk, about everything that it's so big there. And it wasn't as much NFL going on last week because it was all, it was still a week before this insane week that basically began on Monday with the official negotiating. But there were a lot of teams re-signing players before that. But yeah, the Eastern fan, let's be honest, the Eastern fan is a different breed. And whether it's New York, whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's Boston, whatever it is, there's a manic to those fans that is incomparable to a lot of places. I know I'll get people from Chicago mad at me and maybe some people here in Phoenix, and there are manic fans here. But we're talking about the numbers that are born and bred fans of those teams. Let's be honest, here in Phoenix, what's the oldest team is what? Almost 50 years old now with the Suns.
1968.
And so many people here in this area are from somewhere else, but they're great sports fans. Don't get me wrong, but it's a whole, like I said, it's a whole different breed than what it is on the East Coast in those major cities.
All right, looking at the Arizona Cardinals, you got Sweat. I love the Tomlinson signing. Got Gaither. Walker gets picked up from the Commanders, former Falcon. It looks like they're really focusing on that defensive line. What's the issue of the holdup with Kaiser White? Are they allowing him just to kind of go out and about and then come back with, hey, this is the best I have? I would have thought that he would have been one of their priorities to get signed.
I thought it would be, but here's the thing. If we go back to what happened right after the season when Kaiser White was thanking basically everybody in Arizona, that said to me that he was given a message that he was not going to be a priority to be back. And I think that's the reality of it. Great leader, played 100%, I think, if not 100%, very close to 100% of the snaps last year at the Mike linebacker, the guy that relays the signals. But, he's getting up there a little bit in age. He doesn't have the speed, pass coverage. You don't ask your inside linebacker to pass cover that much, but that became an issue. And I think basically, guys, I think they just wanted to get a little bit younger there and more athletic. And so I think that's what it was all about. And this Davis Gaither, I think, is we'll know when the season starts, certainly, but he's an underrated signing. And I know he didn't play all that much. He didn't start that many games in Cincinnati. But you know what? Mac Wilson didn't start that many games before he came here also. And so they obviously liked something in his game that they saw. He started 6 games at the end of last season when their starter Logan Wilson was hurt, and he had 3 double-digit tackle games. and he played pretty darn good football. And I was told by people in Cincinnati that he's one of those reliable guys. He's always where he's supposed to be, which of course is important in any defense, but certainly in the Cardinals. And I think, like I said, they wanted to go a little more younger and athletic at that position. So I don't know that there's a holdup. I just think they're moving on to somebody else.
Howard Balzer's our guest on the Right Toyota guest line. Howard, do you think they're pretty much finished, or could you see them chasing a wide receiver that just got released from the LA Rams?
I would doubt that Cooper Kupp would be high on their radar. And I'm not ruling it totally out, but I mean, this is a team that, now Dalvin Tomlinson is a guy who's a little bit up there in age, but obviously what, the needs on the defensive line, they felt was very important to get a big guy on the line like him. I do think they'll look at wide receiver, but I don't know that they would be interested that much in Kupp. And I think he's going to be waiting it out and wanting to go to a team that he knows is a true contender. And obviously money is all about it. And, the one thing I want to say too is that I understand how fans are. Fans want to sign everybody with a name out there. They want to add all these guys. But you know what? The player has to want to come to where you are. Yes. Now, that's not to say that people don't want to come to Arizona. I'm not saying that at all. But when you have teams that have been perennial winners and win year after year, are basically in the playoffs, then a lot of players, that's where they want to go, especially when they get to later in their career. So I don't think that Cooper Kupp, I might end up being 100% wrong, but I don't think he'll be, truly on their radar.
Howard Balzer here on ESPN 620. Howard, as you kind of went into the free agency and you were already advancing yourself to the draft and the Arizona Cardinals, from what they have done this week, have you changed any of your thought process on who they need to draft?
Not that much, really, because I thought that, depending if they got an edge, I thought that it would probably come down. Let's remember, you don't know who's going to be there at 16. There's always the chance you'll trade down. Mm-hmm. But I thought the things that made the most sense at 16 would be an edge rusher or on the defensive line, especially the interior. Well, basically in a 3-4, essentially all the linemen are basically interior guys. And so they got it, spent a lot of money on an edge rusher. They have other guys coming back, that they like by re-signing Baron Browning and Xavier Thomas. He started flashing a bit at the end of his rookie season last year. So I'm not saying they won't draft an edge rusher, but I think it becomes perhaps less of an absolute need in that first round. Now, defensive line, I mean, I know a lot of fans soured on Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols, and I've always said you can't evaluate on 11 games. Actually, let me see here, 9 games total that those two guys played. So I know that they hope that they'll come in and be able to play. But, you add Tomlinson, you have Darius Robinson, who it's almost like his rookie season all over again. And you still have Dante Stills and some other guys. So I think that it almost opens it up to say, hey, let's just get the best player that's available there. It might end up being an offensive lineman at guard because I know they like Isaiah Adams, but are they ready to go into the season with him at right guard? Is there a possibility Will Hernandez could come back? I don't know how you can count on that because he's still rehabbing a torn ACL. So it could end up being offensive line. So I think what it does, it opens up perhaps a few more possibilities at when they get to where they are in the first round to get the best player there that fills a need, but not a crying.
2 minutes.
And Howard, all that being said, it seems though what I hear you saying that the Cardinals are at least scratching those itches that they need here in the offseason. I think the other one's a big one is bringing Jacoby Brissett in as a backup quarterback to Kyler Murray. I think that's a huge upgrade from that particular standpoint. And if Kyler does go down, they can feel pretty confident that this is a guy that takes care of the ball, is experienced, and he won't get you in trouble, that's for sure.
No question. And I think the leadership and mentorship involved to have a veteran guy in there, for the off season, in off season practice, during games when things are going crazy, and he can be a good guy to get into Kyler's ear during games. So I think that was a big signing. I remember 2 years ago when Jacoby Brissett was available, and everyone knew that Kyler Murray wasn't going to be able to play probably until at least halfway through the season. that Brissett would have been a good guy to bring in. But, Washington paid him $8 million. The Cardinals didn't want to go that high for him, and so they just stuck with Colt McCoy for the offseason and totally misjudged his elbow situation, and then had to scramble and get Joshua Dobbs just before the season started. So, yeah, I definitely believe that was a good signing. He actually gets less average per year than what he got from Washington 2 years ago. And so he's definitely a plus, no question, to have on the roster, and another underrated addition that they've had. And so, everyone wants to spend tons of money and all this. The cap room disappears, pretty quickly. A lot of guys don't realize that I didn't think they were going to tender Greg Dortch because that cost over $3.2 million. I thought they tried to get him signed for a little bit less, but perhaps they couldn't, and they felt they wanted him back. Well, that's $3.2 million goes right off the cap. And so, they've already signed 12 or 13 guys, and we don't know the cap numbers on a bunch of them, but that cap space disappears.
Clear to wrap.
Will realize. And I still think there'll be guys out there for them to add, but it's not going to be a big time contract.
What kind of number would to add one Asante Samuel Jr.? What would that be? I mean, he's in for a visit. Hey, if he's coming in, they're hosting him. Howard, I don't let him out of the building until I get him signed.
It's interesting about that because a lot of these guys don't visit anymore. I remember 5 years before the pandemic and all that. I remember when free agency hit, and maybe a few years before the pandemic. I mean, free agency would start, and guys were, taking visits all over the country, going to this team and that team and all that. So you can meet a guy and get him up front and club. Yeah. Now it's just signing guys sight unseen. And so what I saw today, guys, we're only on the second day of the league year. Now, I know all the negotiations began Monday, but what we saw, there's been close to 250 unrestricted free agents signed already, either switching teams or re-signing. And we've seen a lot of teams getting ahead of the game by re-signing their own guys because they realize if they can get those guys re-signed, then because if then you can go out and try to replace them, a lot of times it's more expensive. So try to get it done. And so what we have today, I saw there's been about 30 guys or so that have reached agreements today, and virtually everyone is a 1-year contract. Yeah. And so we're already in the second or third wave of free agency. And Samuel, depends if there's not a whole lot of interest from other teams, solid, good player. He hasn't been as great as some predicted he would be. So I think there might not be a 1-year deal, but a lot of these 2-year deals are 1 year and then another, stuff added on in the second year that you can get out of it if you want to. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that happen for him. But, it just adds more depth to that room because, Garrett Williams, good player. I mean, Star Thomas, has turned into a pretty solid player. And so they've got some good, Max Melton, another good young corner. But, Asante Samuel's only played, 4 years, so he's still a relatively young guy. So that would add some more, some experience and another relatively young guy to that room that provides you with ability and more depth.
Howard, again, congratulations on the Hofstra Achievement Award and great stuff today, man. Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. Take care.
That's Howard Balzer, brought to you today by All City Towing, which are going to be extremely busy today because no, I won't go there. But if for some reason your car has an issue, I got you covered. I'll get you picked up. For instance, if you get to the point where you don't want to drive anymore because of the rain and you want to just pull over to the side,
sure.
Have your flashers on, and I'll call. Say, tell me they'll come pick you up. And they'll take you home.
Okay.
To get you out there.
Get those flashers on.
I will.
Yeah. So make sure you do that. But they are the largest towing company in the state, and they are great partners, and we're so happy to have them. They're hiring all types of positions. You can go to their website, allcitytowing.com. All City Towing, where your future is on the move. Coming up, our State 48 Roofing It's Your Call question of the day. Another company that's extremely busy. I think all our partners like Lerner & Rowe and Erect need a check. I mean, this is the kind of day that their phones are off the hook, sadly. But it's good for business. Same thing with State 48 Roofing when it comes to leaks and things like that. State48roofing.com will give you the It's Your Call question of the day next right here on Rock.